First of all, welcome everyone. Welcome Mark Milligan. For everyone, thanks for coming. A massive podcast ahead to the live audience as well, of those watching on the live stream, and also Facebook, YouTube. Welcome. Big shout out to our sponsors, Elk Architecture, our major sponsor, Mitchell & Beasley Home Styling, Connectability Australia, Tazza McKenna, Newcastle Sheet Metal, they're a new sponsor, and also a new sponsor that's just jumped on board this week, Purnell Trophies, who just jumped on yesterday, and we might need some more trophies getting made pretty soon, I reckon, but thank you for all their support. What does it take to rebuild belief in a football city? Well, we have a man across from me that came to the club starved of success, a dwindling fan base, all in an area of Australia with a rich football history. He's turned the Newcastle Jets' fortunes around in an unbelievable way. He's made a statement of epic proportions, 2 trophies, hopefully 3, and more to come, and it's been done in style. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Milligan. I just said on the great, I think it was up on the Jets socials today that it was actually 1 year to the day that you actually signed.
Yeah. Well, firstly, thank you for having me, and secondly, I didn't know there was going to be a live audience until my grandma called me because she saw something on Facebook. So fantastic to see everyone.
Hi, Nan.
Yeah, it would be close. Yeah, it was close to 1 year to the day, and you don't always want the truth to get in the way of a good story, but I'm sure it was pretty close.
Congratulations of what's been achieved. But it's not over yet, is it?
No, not by a long shot, and I think that's been that's always been the main message. I think there's a reason that these players are in the position that they are. And that's because they've been so solely focused on the day-to-day and just making sure that they get better, that they're better people each day, that they keep working hard. And, I'm sure we'll get a little bit more into the detail of it, but I don't ever want them to feel like what they've done is enough. So yeah. We've still got a couple of weeks of some fantastic football to come. As
you know, we're in a part of the world where we do have a final series. Just your thought, everywhere else, or nearly everywhere else, it's first past the post. Now, you guys were first past the post champions, but it's almost like if Adelaide United go on and win this, and everyone will be looking back going, it was their year. Well, no, it fucking wasn't. It's your year.
Yeah, but look, it is... I guess for the football purist, it makes absolutely no sense. But as a Australian footballer, coming through the game here, playing for my local clubs in Birrong and Auburn, it's what we do in Australian sport, and it's what we're used to. Like I said, from as early as I can remember, as long as I can remember playing, there's always been sort of that grand final at the end of the year. And look, for better or worse, I can't see it changing anytime soon. And like I said, for the football purist, maybe it definitely is a hard pill to swallow, but I just don't think it's going to change, and we just have to reassess now, and we just turn our football into cup football and hopefully get the job done.
Because we've already got now a cup competition, so it's sort of like to win the double, there it is. But I know that a lot of clubs make a little bit extra money on the side, from the finals, which good luck to Newcastle, because they're going to be a full house this Saturday. I think when you guys were playing in that Australia Cup campaign, we were looking going, can this type of style be sustained over a long period of time? Obviously it can.
Yeah, it's like I said, I've known Australian football from living it, from playing it. I've been fortunate now to coach in it for a while, and I think it's very important as well and it's part of, like I said, not just the vision I had for Newcastle, but how I sort of see Australian football, that we stay true to who we are, and I think always growing up and going to games and watching even the NSL, the fondest memories I have are of teams that didn't necessarily have the biggest name players in terms of foreigners, but they created Australian players, and they were exciting to watch. They scored goals. I remember watching Brett Emerson play, and Ahmed Elrich and players like this, and they were all high energy attacking footballers. And like I said, that's obviously, I've developed a way that I think helps you become successful, and successful takes different shapes and forms. You know, success doesn't necessarily mean winning trophies. Success can mean different things to different people. But at the end of the day, like I said, I think I wanted to play not just a brand of football that was going to be successful, but a brand of football that was going to bring people in the Hunter back to the stadium.
It's the style. It's relentless, attacking, aggressive, which can backfire sometimes. And I thought how refreshing, but also I thought, if you get a run of ordinary results, which he's did at the start of the season, I think he's had, lost 5 out of your first 7. Is it time to ditch it? Were you worried a little bit at that point?
No, I wasn't. In all honesty, no, I wasn't. Because, like I said, I've experienced this process a few times, both as a player and as a coach. And there's 3 sort of clear phases that I knew we'd go through. And the first one is excitement, and that's from players and from the board and from people inside the club, because I want my team to, everything they do, I want them to have a ball at their feet. So I knew the players would be excited because pre-season they weren't going to be doing 15K time trials. We're going to be playing football. I want them to score goals. Every footballer likes scoring goals. So we're going to have that excitement. And in hindsight, that sort of period probably lasted a little bit long for us because we kept winning in the cup. So we would play a game in the cup where I thought, not necessarily great, and there was a lot of things we needed to work on. But I had a young group, so we'd win a game. I'd do a review. I'd tell them, you've got so far to go. And they sort of look at me like I was mad. Like, we just won. We just beat Adelaide, or we're into a semi. And then you sort of go through that resistance period. So once that excitement wears off and you go through that resistance period, and that can be because of results, but that can also just be because footballers are footballers and they want to challenge me and they want to challenge the beliefs that I have, because every footballer thinks there's a better way to do things, and that's normal. Everyone wants to have that discussion, and that takes shape in different ways. Sometimes it's them voicing their opinion or asking questions, or sometimes it's them giving me a little bit of resistance in drills or how we ask them to do things. So once you get through that, once they start to understand that I'm not changing, that this is what I believe, and not only that I have the answers to the questions that they're asking, and I'm consistent in that messaging, then that's when you start to see growth. And that's the period we sort of went through in that sort of first 4 or 5 weeks of the season.
I mean, do you feel that the fact that they are all young players, or young greyhounds, or nearly all of them, that you didn't get that resistance? If you were like doing that same thing, this is the style we're going to play with some older heads, and you've played with some older heads in those dressing rooms, there's real strong people in those dressing rooms, you could have lost the dressing room.
Yes and no. You have to be prepared for it, and because I know you're going to go through that stage. I think the only real difference between having that more experienced team and a younger team is, like we experienced, it took a little bit longer for that resistance period to come. If we had a little bit more experience, so to speak, or some older heads, I guess, then I probably would have been challenged a little bit earlier, because again, I've seen it from the other side of the fence. I can remember myself challenging Ange on the way that he was going about things, and it didn't take me as long as it took our players to challenge me.
How did he take that?
Yeah, as Ange does, mate. There was no mucking around. I got put back into my place and told to sort of get on with it. And like I said, once that sort of happens, and once I knew how strong his belief was, and it's other coaches I've had this experience with as well, but once I knew how strong his belief was, and that it wasn't changing, you sort of have to get on board, or you get left behind.
Do you feel also too, just sort of staying on that, if you were at, say, a Melbourne Victory or a Sydney FC or a Wanderers, they might not have been as forgiving after a start like that, mightn't they?
Yes and no. I'm probably fortunate in terms of they may not have been forgiving, but I think over the last few years we've just seen how forgiving some clubs are. Because I think, look, it's hard in Australia because there's so few jobs, and I just feel like we've become a little bit of a nation in terms of football where, rather than trying to really succeed and thrive and really bring these young players through, it's more about just not losing a job rather than actually excelling in a job. And like I said, I'm probably in a fortunate situation because I've been in the game so long. I don't have a lot of self-preservation because at the end of the day, I know I will be in the game some shape or form moving forward. What that looks like, I don't know, and I can't hide away from the fact that there will come a day as well, whether that's here or elsewhere, where it doesn't work and I get fired. But I was prepared going into this industry, going in as a head coach, that I need to stick to what I believe, and if I do that, I think the best case scenario far outweighs worst case.
Yeah, I mean, I've asked a few people of note that happen to know. They ask him this, And first up is Stan Sports football analyst Craig Fozzie Foster. He says, first of all, congratulations on a magnificent season, restoring dignity and pride to the Hunter. As a former youth player from northern New South Wales, it's great to see. He has actually two questions. First one, very similar to what we sort of mentioned. Can you explain to young coaches how you got a very young group of players to commit and believe in always going forward, especially when they make mistakes and lose games? It's sort of nearly, I suppose you nearly summed that up before, but
yeah. There's like I said, there's many sort of different ways to go about it. I think one of the first and foremost, I had to make sure that I had that trust of the players, and that does take time in many senses. But for me, the best coaches I've had over the years coming through, no matter what sort of philosophy they had or how they played, for me, the best thing about them was they were very, very consistent in who they were. So every day, there was, if they wanted to be Ange and they wanted to be separated from the group and seen as more of a taskmaster, no problem, but that's who you have to be all the time. And then you have someone like Arnie, who's very personable, very open, wants to have a conversation all the time. No problem, but you can't come in tomorrow, then all of a sudden try to be Ange. Because that's the quickest way for me on how to lose a group and how to lose players. But in terms of, so that was first and foremost, to make sure that I was consistent in my personality and who I am. And the other thing was that, my number one goal for them is to give them a platform to become better. And that's genuinely from my heart. I want to be able to help them. Maybe I can, maybe I can't. I'm not everyone's cup of tea, but no one is. But I wanted to be able to provide a platform for them where they could come to work and firstly be comfortable coming to work every day. And then secondly, have an opportunity every day to be slightly better than they were the day before. And that I have to keep moving those goalposts, because as they continuously get better individually and as a group, I have to make sure that I keep shifting how we do things. So at the very beginning, if we sort of bring it all back and just look at it in its purest form, I wanted to be someone who helped them achieve what they wanted to individually.
Did you feel when you first came to the club, looking at other clubs in the A-League, again, you're so lucky to get a club. It felt like you got these young thoroughbreds. It was like a blank canvas that you could do that. You knew coming in that this could be a really good project. Yeah,
definitely. Like, when I looked at the squad, it was definitely something that, popped into my head, but also I was in a position early on where we had a lot of players coming off contract. So I think I had 9 or 10 sort of players moving on that were here, and it wasn't that they were bad players by any means. It was just that when I looked at the makeup of the squad, I felt like there were a lot of players that did the same thing, that were very similar in terms of not only where they were at, but what they produced on the pitch. And I think a big, I think we talk about in football, you want to be able to have structures and philosophies and principles, and that's all well and good. But for me, those principles need to be really strong and really set in stone for when times are tough. Because ultimately, if a team's playing well, I don't want to tell my 10 that he can't take on a player on the edge of the box, or he has to pass to the right, or he has to pass to the left. So that was important, that we just at the very, most basic level of it, that we were able to allow them to be free within what we did.
Yeah. Question number 2 from Fozzie. Given that you will aspire to higher levels, what must the club do to ensure it capitalises this achievement and creates continual success in coming years? Previous success has quietly dissipated and not been capitalised on.
It's a good question, because I think we hear the word rebuild in Australian football way too often.
Yep.
And one of the discussions that I had with Morris and the rest of the board when I first interviewed was I needed them to be sure that what I was going to bring is the direction that they wanted to head in, because there's no sort of point, however long I'm here for, it's natural in our game. Our game's transitional. Players move on, coaches move on. It's important that the club had a say in the identity that they wanted moving forward, because whenever I do move on, 2 years, 3 years, whenever that is, what should happen is, rather than just going to find a coach to fill the role, they now as a club, because it's the direction they want to head in, they can now, rather than looking at 50 coaches, can go and look at 10 coaches that have similar beliefs to what the club has, or to what we've started to produce, which is a high energy, at its very basic level, a high energy attacking brand of football. So now, instead of speaking to your Bert Van Marwijks, who are defensive coaches, or Simeones, for instance, who are defensive coaches, you start to talk to Pep Guardiola's, obviously not at that level, but attacking coaches.
He'd be a good replacement for you, I tell you.
Yeah, I'd take his job too if he didn't want it.
Clean swap.
But what I'm trying to say is that because the club's had a say in it and has created an identity, then what happens is the next one that comes in, he doesn't do exactly like I did, but we have a base now, and that's who the club is, that's who the team is. So the new coach, all he does is add what he brings so that the club continues then to grow. And the other important thing for me that must keep happening is we must keep reaching into the youth squads, because there's some fantastic players coming through and we keep seeing more and more of them. And again, I think Australian football needs to acknowledge that at the end of the day, we're a selling league. But what happens is, if we're able to produce every year 2 players from now on, 2 players that come through our academy, then even if we sell 1 or 2, we still have the 1 or 2 that are there already. They become the base of the club. They become the backbone of the club. Because what you get when you have these local boys coming through is we're trying to create an identity that matches what we feel represents the region of the Hunter. And when you have players like Will Dobson and Max Cooper's in there and Alex Nunez's, no matter what players you bring or where you bring them from, they have an understanding straight away already of what it means to be from Newcastle, what it means to represent the fans of Newcastle. So it's very important, even if a Will Dobson moves on and an Alex Nunez moves on, maybe a Max Cooper doesn't, and he becomes the core of the group. And I'm not saying he won't, because he's a fantastic player, but what I'm trying to say is then you have an understanding and you have a backbone of players that become your Lee Broxhams and have a true understanding of the league, are able to bring through the young ones so they know straight away what it means to play for Newcastle. And then you have a coach who's adding to what Newcastle, what the board, what Maverick Sports Partners have already put in place. And then you start to get rid of that word rebuild, and you just start to see actual growth.
It's almost too, you also need to have a great management to sort of, I suppose, structure this in regards to how many years a player will sign. If that 1 or 2 of these are going to be the backbone, then they're the ones that are going to get more of a couple of years more, I suppose, and then build the shell around it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's something that I felt Adelaide did very well. It took them a long time to get to where they are, and I'm very fortunate for the time I had at Adelaide. I'm very thankful for the time I had at Adelaide, because I think the way that they bring through their young ones is fantastic. And I'll give you an example. Young Ethan Allegich, who I think has been fantastic this year, obviously has a history with the club with his dad as well, but came through juniors and things like that. And I remember they put a 5-year deal in front of him. And I remember at the time thinking, 5 years, it's a long time. And I just pulled him aside and had a discussion with him. And he said, Mills, it didn't matter what they put in front of me. He said, they've been responsible for my development. We know what it means to play for this club. I was always going to sign it. So that for me is where, and that takes time. That's where we need to get to now. These kids in the academy need to understand that there is a pathway for them. And also, it's very, very difficult to find loyalty in football. But where I feel like you can find loyalty in football, and where I always had loyalty in football, was when I was a young player coming through and I had someone be honest with me and give me good advice with my best interests at heart.
When you say, when we talk about the way, the style, the boys have been playing, to that just attack, you go to local games, like NPL games, and technically it's great, but also it seems almost like they're too frightened to lose possession. It's almost like you see this back and forth across the field in this middle of the park, and you're sort of going, I've come to watch goals get scored, and it's almost like they don't want to back themselves. But it seems like it's a case of you've got the prototype, but you've just got to get that mindset of knowing to back yourself. Because once you make a mistake, sometimes you go back into your shell and for the next 10, 15 minutes.
Well, you have to be willing to go through that tough period as well, that resistance period. But ultimately as well, so it's all sort of well and good, me telling them to attack and be on the front foot, and if you're not sure, go forward. But ultimately, there's certain situations that they need to experience for themselves. I can tell them till I'm blue in the face, where, especially early on, before they really knew me and really knew how stubborn I was in terms of the way that we were going to play, I could tell them I was blue in the face that we were going to be vulnerable in transition, and that's where it's going to be. And this is where we're going to concede goals. But until they experience that for themselves and figure out the small details of that, the nuances of how to defend that, then it, like I said, then it is tough, because then you are sort of sitting on the sideline as a coach going, I can see what's going to happen here. I know it's going to happen, and now I've got to double down on it. So it's not an easy thing to do. And like I said, it more comes from because this way of playing, it's not something that I thought of 12 months ago that this would be a nice way to play in Newcastle. This is something that's been developing in my head for 15 years.
Was there a half-time or a full-time where you got in the dressing room and ripped them a new one?
Yeah, there's been a couple. Not too often. Not too often, but it definitely does happen. Nowhere near as much as it happened when I was a player coming through.
Well, I was going to say, what was the worst dressing down that you've ever got?
Oh, I've had some good ones. I've had some
names,
really good ones. Pierre Liparski was always fantastic for a little half-time spray. I remember there was one we were playing. I think we were playing Brisbane Roar. We had a goalkeeper, good mate of mine. I haven't seen him in a while. Second goalkeeper, Justin Passfield. Yep. And Pierre Liparski used to have this little whiteboard. He'd take it everywhere. Like, you'd never see Pierre without this whiteboard. And it was quite calm at halftime. We were down 1-0, and Passfield we had Clint Bolton. So Clint Bolton was the number one. Clint Bolton never got injured, never missed a game, never missed a session. So Justin knew he was never, ever going to play. In his head, he was never, ever going to play. I remember Justin was sitting next to me at halftime eating some lollies, had his feet up, his hands behind his head. And I don't know, Liparski must have made eye contact with him. And this whiteboard came at about 120k straight across the room, straight into Justin's chest. But I was sitting next to him. So I was and I remember Pierre grabbed me after and he's like, fuck, I'm so sorry. He goes, I nearly got you. I said, I thought you were aiming for me. So things like that. And the other best one would be Neil Lennon for me. Neil Lennon was half-time, before the game, after the game. He was one that sort of probably... I got a lot of time for Neil Lennon. He's been fantastic, done so much in the game. Yeah. But for me, he was one I never really knew what to expect on a daily basis from Neil.
I mean, your grandfather, he meant a lot to you. He'd be a pretty happy man looking down right now, isn't he?
Yeah, I got a text today from my grandma. She said she'd spoken to him recently, so he was pretty happy with what was going on. Yeah, he had a big influence on not just me in terms of Mark Milligan, the footballer, but who I am as a person. I spent a lot of time. My parents were very young, so I spent a lot of time with him. I spent I spent every afternoon down the park with him. Got some fantastic stories from the time that we spent together down on a football field. And he was a rugby league man, but he was also a very, very smart man. Worked for Phillips. Was very logical as well. Tried to bring logic to me as a footballer, and tried to bring physics to how I went about things. It didn't resonate so well with me, but I appreciated the attempt in how he went through, how he tried to educate me.
Yeah, he passed away in 2017, and he would have been there when you made the AIS, the Socceroos. I mean, I suppose you're out there playing knowing that he was there all the way.
Yeah, he was there, like I said, throughout. He was the one I went to when I was sort of 13, 14, I was 14 actually. And when I told him, when I decided that I wasn't going to play the game anymore, he was the one that I went and spoke to, and he was the one that sort of got me back into it. He was my first phone call after I got called into the under 20s camp for the very first time, my first ever national team call-up. He was in Germany at the '06 World Cup. I don't think he missed a game that I played in from the time I started kicking a ball.
Just with being a coach, I mean, as a player, when you were playing, did you always think you'd be a coach?
Yeah, for a long time. So I would have been about 22, 23. I was in Japan and I had a bad groin injury.
Was it Jeff United?
Yeah, I was at Jeff and I pushed through for about 6 months and I knew I was making it worse, but the 2010 World Cup was on the horizon. So we sort of made the decision that, I was just going to grit and bear it and get on with it. And I made it to the World Cup and I got through the World Cup and then just broke down afterwards. And we had a Dutch coach at the time in Japan and I was out for a good 9 months. So I spent a lot of time on the physio table and he was just very methodical in the way that he went about things. And I sort of took a little bit of interest in his preparation and how he got to the point of how we played the football and why we did it. And he was just he was very open for me because, like I said, because I wasn't on the pitch, I had discussions with him and he sort of let me into the inner sanctum a little bit, I guess. He started showing me, not ridiculous detail, but sort of started showing me how he got sessions together, and it just started to pique my interest, to be honest with you. And that was sort of where it started for me.
Just before we get into some of those coaches that you played under, just getting back to at 14, what did you give the game away for? Or wanted to give it away?
Yeah, I was playing at Millida Eagles at the time. I'd been there for a couple of years. I played a few other sports. It was just, look, I was just a teenager and I thought the world was against me and football was the problem and I just wasn't enjoying it. It just felt like it was hard.
Yeah.
I'd had some other teams, like I'd had some decisions to make in the off season. I think it was at the time Sydney Olympic had sort of asked me to come across and there was one other team that had asked me to come across and I guess that was the first time I really, experienced the uglier side of the game.
Yeah.
In terms of how people went about things and, things that they were saying. And I'd never made any representative teams at the time. And, I don't think there was anything specific. I think I'd just sort of, like I said, I was just a teenager. I was probably a bit more emotional than I should have been. And I remember I went home and I said to my mum, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm done. I'm not enjoying it. It's no fun. I don't get to see my friends. So that was, like I said, that I think it lasted about 3 weeks, mate, to be honest with you. So
your grandfather might say, come play rugby league. But just staying on that, you said that you didn't make representative sides. You see sometimes that the other way, and I just think of two that stand out, Ben Kantorowski, Stuart Michalek. They practically played, from Joey's, Olympic squads, 23s, but they did all that work and made every rep team, but then just couldn't get there for one thing or another,
Yeah, it's you see that in a lot of players. I think obviously Stewie's journey is probably a little bit different. What a fantastic player. But he's had to deal with some things that people shouldn't have to deal with in their not only their working lives but their lives in general. So, but yeah, you do. Like I said, there was a lot of players that I grew up with. That a lot of attention early on, and then I guess didn't capitalise on things, and I think there's a number of different reasons for it, and there's probably a number of different reasons why I was fortunate enough to go on the career that I did, and I think that not being going through those moments where I didn't want to play anymore or I found it too difficult and having to get back into it and not making things, I sort of very much developed the attitude that it wasn't that I wanted to prove people wrong. It was just that I just wouldn't accept what they were telling me about who I was as a footballer.
I suppose too, it just sort of exemplifies in regards to you don't have to make rep sides to get to the end and have a great outcome. I once spoke to Andre Gomprecht, who used to play for the Central Coast Mariners. He's a coach on the Central Coast now, German, played Bundesliga. And he once said to me, he goes, in Germany, if you don't make it by the time you're 22, 23, there's still so many divisions to play. He said, here in Australia, it's almost like if you're not in the top squad at the age of 17, 18, the kid's scratching his head going, is this for me? When a little bit more, in another country, he probably would have been given a little bit more
Yeah.
leniency.
Yeah, I think that's definitely correct, but I think there's probably more to it as well, because I think if you look at these sorts of countries, Germany and Spain, and where football is number one, and yes, you do have so many levels of the game as well, but I think the Australian lifestyle as well plays a big part in that, because there aren't as many opportunities, but there's also more options in life.
Yeah.
So if you get to sort of 16, 17 and you haven't made it at the top level, but all your mates are surfing and doing well in whatever they're doing work-wise, you can sort of go down that path as well, where, especially in Europe and especially South America, that's the journey, that's the path, that's the, that's not just going to set you up, it's going to look after your family as well. So I think it's a different mentality, I think, sport in general in Australia compared to a lot of those countries, especially when you talk about football.
You've already rattled off a few names, but you've had some fairly decent coaches to learn off. Obviously, Ange Postecoglou, Melbourne Victory, Socceroos, winning the Asian Cup, Hiddink, Verbeek, Van Marwijk. A lot of Dutchmen there. That's a lot. But is that sort of like that sort of style? We took the Dutch curriculum, didn't we? Which is sort of starting to bear fruit in a way.
That's gone.
It's but I mean, that Dutch system, when it was put into the curriculum, it had a lot of people bagging it, sort of saying this shouldn't be the only road we're going down. There's other countries, and over time, countries work each other out over time. You see the Dutch become dominant, the French, the Germans. Is it important to go down whole spoilers down one road?
Yeah, I think it's hurt us more than it's helped us. And like I said, like you mentioned there, I have had a lot of Dutch coaches, but and I know obviously quite well the Dutch way, and I don't think it's for us as well, because I think more importantly than the introduction of certain certain philosophies and certain ways of playing, I feel like, and I felt it through my journey through the national team, I felt like we lost our identity as athletes a little bit. So whilst we were really trying to drive home this way of playing football, I don't think it totally suited us anyway. But I also think we started to dissolve some of our biggest strengths, because some of our biggest strengths, and I don't know why we shy away from it, is our work ethic, that we are relentless, that it never mattered who we were playing, we were going to get at them. And I felt, like I said, I felt through my journey through the Socceroos, from that sort of 06 World Cup team, the golden generation, who we had players coming from all over the world. As soon as they put on that Socceroos jersey, mate, they were dogs. They were relentless. Yeah, they could play football as well. But that's when this Dutch stuff started coming in. I felt like we lost that identity a little bit.
I remember when I did the Mark Viduka interview, he mentioned when he was at the AIS that back then they used to send them like a pre-season to South America, playing a South American team that was 2 years above them. Probably Middleby was in that team as well. And he said, we were physical. We lost one of those games. We lost 2-0. But you know what? We took some bark off them, and they knew they were in a game. And that was the respect they gave us at the end of the game, going, wow, you guys, gave it to us. That was lost in what you were sort of saying, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, I definitely, and again, this is just my opinion and my experiences, but I definitely think so, because very similar to what Duke said there, like we used to go, we went to Ireland and we went to England, but we played in the Milk Cup. We played teams like Independiente, and I think we got done 5-0, but that's one of the best games I've ever played in. I thought, and from a footballing point of view, I thought we held our own as well. Then we went, when we were in one of the under-20s camps early on, but it was pretty much a lot of the AIS boys. We went to Argentina. We played in a stadium that was supposed to hold 7,000 people, and there was 30,000 in there, and we were getting pelted with coins. And mate, we were fantastic that day. We had players like Mark Bridge in that team, Shuey Mashalik, but we went there with the intention to win a game. And we didn't. We ended up losing 3-2, but that's because a 16-year-old Messi, I think, came off the bench and scored a hat-trick. We played about 25 minutes at a time because the 30,000 people didn't want to go home until they'd won. But other than that, mate, we, you know...
Well, the big question is, did you swap Messi's shirt?
No,
Did you get it?
No, I didn't get it, unfortunately.
Was Ange the best coach you played under?
Yes. Yes. In a nutshell, yes.
Got a pick.
I know everyone sort of looks at and hears, because I speak about it a little bit, but I speak about coaches that had influences on me first and foremost as a player. You know, I also have a lot of reasons to really dislike Ange, but that's normal. When I talk about football, for me, he was the biggest influence because he was the one that instilled in me that if I wanted to play a certain way of football, it wasn't good enough to look at the players I have and say, you know what, he can't do it, he can't do it, he can't do it. They're Australian, they're not technical enough, they're not good enough. No, go and spend the time to educate them, to give them the tools to play the football that you want. Don't just discard them because they're young and they're Australian. Spend time in making or helping them become better themselves, but then being able to play the brand of football you want. And that's what he did for me. He changed my game so much, and I didn't think it could be done.
And you also said I suppose you challenged him at times. Is that a good thing sometimes too, that to challenge a coach? Because we always talk about, you know, when people argue, sometimes you get the best results out of an argument. Is anyone in this current Jets team that challenges you?
Yeah, but like I said, I think this generation is very different. So the way they challenge me is different. It might be a little bit of a calmer discussion. It might be a question sort of away from the group. But I definitely have players that challenge it. And as well, it was very important. And this is why my staff is so important. And my biggest job when I first came in was to make sure that my staff were educated, that they were on the same page. Yeah. Because what happens is players will find the weak link. And if there's a weak link, and in terms of the information's a little bit different, or if I'll give you an example, if Max Burgess goes to Nick Stavrakis and says, Stava, I reckon I should play backwards here, or I should drop off. And Stava goes, you know what, maybe in that instance, yeah, totally innocent, no problem. But what that does, that creates that little bit of doubt. That creates that little bit of doubt, and that little bit of doubt can grow very, very quickly. Yeah. So I needed to make sure that when he goes to Nick and he says that, Nick turns to him and says, no, mate, we step forward there. And then that message starts to resonate. Like I said, that's a challenge in itself. That's them challenging us and who we are and what we want to do.
You're locked into for the club till the end of next season. If I was a club, I'd be looking to make a contract extension for you. Has there been anything happening? I mean, because again, it's this time of year, there's a lot of competitions in Europe that are finishing, probably needing a new coach manager. Yeah. Has there been anyone fishing around?
No, nothing. Like I said, and as well, I'm fortunate. You know, I've never signed with an agent. I've had my agent for a very long time, Buddy Farah. I've never signed with him, but being with someone for a long time, he obviously understands who I am and what I want to do. So I'm sure even if there was something, he wouldn't be bothering me with it at the moment anyway.
I mean, hypothetical, Ange signs for a massive club, which he probably will. He sees what you're doing out here and says, Mark, I'd love you to be my assistant.
No. Absolutely not. Like I said, I have a lot of respect for him. I've been fortunate. I had some time under Carl Viet, who for me was excellent because Carl was exactly what I needed at that time as well. Carl allowed me to be very, very hands-on, to make mistakes. Carl was a teacher for me because he like I said, he gave me that freedom to be me, but also to be able to work and try to bring his vision to life, which was a good experience for me. And one of the reasons I went to Malaysia was because I wanted to work under Peter Klimowski. Peter Klimowski was obviously well known for working with Ange, but has very much become his own manager as well over the last, let's say, 8 years, done some fantastic things in Japan, but again, sort of tweaked the way I look at things, gave me another sort of option and a few more challenges. And the reason I say no, absolutely not, is because from day one as a player, yes, there's been so many people that have helped me. And as a coach, I've had that same experience. But now that I've stepped into this head coaching role, it's my journey to be had. And that doesn't mean I won't seek advice and I won't speak to people. But I waited for this opportunity, and I feel like now I don't think I could step back into an assistance role, no matter where that was, because ultimately for me, there's so many similarities across the world in terms of the football and what happens on the grass. So I think my biggest learnings now are to come away from the football. My biggest learnings at the moment are at board level, at how to negotiate with people about bringing in players and the nuances of the club as a business.
I mean, in regards to the way, when you were a player, you're probably looking at your career in how it was going to go and where you wanted to structure it. So that's the same way as a way with coaching, isn't it? Because again, if just say you took that job with Ange, if it ever came about, it'd be sort of like a step backwards. Yes, it would be great for that time, but the development side is going to be stripped back. You don't want to knock over the building blocks.
Yeah, and as a player as well, I made so many decisions for the Socceroos to make sure that I was available to play for the Socceroos, and I made decisions because of advice from Socceroos coaches like Pim Verbeek. And don't get me wrong, I don't regret that for 1 second, because what a journey I was fortunate enough to go on. But I made a decision a long time ago that the only person that was going to influence my coaching career, my managerial career, would be me. So I felt like during my playing career, there was a few times maybe I went into a few things a little bit quickly. And again, it's not to say I regret anything, but now that I'm in this role, this is, like I said, this for me was always going to be who I was in football. So I was very fortunate to have the playing career I did, but this is who I wanted to be now, doing this, moving forward. And I want to make sure that path is dictated by me.
There's a lot of fans watching today who will be very happy with what you've just answered. There was a time that you trialled in France with Metz, and you left before a scheduled trial because they were going to play you at right back.
Who told you this?
Any truth in that?
Who are you speaking to? So I'd been...
So, long story short, you're playing right back, you got the shits and left.
There was more to it. I wasn't just angry about the right. I wasn't just angry about playing right back. I thought I was quite a handy right back, but no. Look, there was more to it. In all honesty, I never wanted to go. I never wanted to go onto that to that trial. It was after the 07 Asian Cup. I thought it was sort of my breakthrough tournament, really. So I didn't want to go, and again, this was one where I had an agent at the time who thought it was a good idea. He didn't come. I went over on my own, mate. I had about €30 to my name. I just didn't want to be there. I went to the first day training. I just wasn't comfortable, and then we were supposed to have a game. And I rang my agent and I'm like, mate, I'm not playing. Like, I don't want to. This doesn't feel right. I shouldn't have come. Yeah. I remember he was in the UK at the time, and he's like, all right. He goes, well, just catch a train to Paris and I'll meet you there tomorrow. So I'm like, all right, I've got no money, mate. If I leave, are they going to try to charge me for the room I'm in? So I remember I packed my bags, I snuck out through the basement, and in Metz, it's a very small town, so I just had my bag and I was walking through Metz, and I remember asking someone where the station was in a little bakery, and he sort of said, you go up here, go there, around here. And I was like, something. Anyway, I went up, I turned left, I turned right, and long story short, I end up back at the bakery. And I'm like, he's taking the piss out of me. I eventually found the station, and the ticket to Paris on the train was €32. I'm like, I've got €30. So I remember trying to negotiate with him, and I think this lady just ended up feeling sorry for me in the end, and she gave me a ticket, and I found some coins. I remember I got to Paris, I found some coins in my bag, and I had one call. I put some payphone, so I put the money into the payphone, called my agent, and it was like 11 a.m, 12 a.m. in the morning. And he told me the name of a cafe, and he goes, just wait there, and I'll meet you there. I'll be there soon. He rocked up at about 10 o'clock that night. I sat in this cafe for freaking 12 hours with zero money, Anyway, that's So that it was more to it than just not wanting to play right back.
Good times. So you're telling me there's a Mets shirt with Milligan on the back that never got worn.
There's probably a hotel bill that needs paying as well.
But around that time, I mean, visas and passports, that sort of plagued your career in a way, sort of like ifs and buts. It was always an issue. Fair to, say around that time, Man City, Sven-Goran Eriksson, Arsenal with Arsene Wenger. It's all about timing sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. It's about timing. And I spent, because I went over, my contract had finished at Sydney FC, and I went over to the UK, and I went to Fulham because Adrian Leia was there. So I hadn't played in a few months. I went to Fulham just to train, to try to get fit and get ready, because I had the Man City trial sort of coming up. And again, this was obviously before Man City were absolute billionaires, and Sven-Goran Eriksson was there. So I spent a week there. After a week, he called me into the office and offered me a 3-year deal. And the idea was that they were going to send me to, I think it was Grasshoppers at the time, and sort of try to bring me through the back door, because I didn't have any way of getting passports, and I was nowhere near what you needed in terms of international football. And the other sort of way of getting in was that the English FA would put a transfer value on you, and it had absolutely nothing to do with what your value actually was. What it was based on was the country that you're coming from. And what it was at the time, what it was done, that was created to allow them to get their Argentinian boys in, their Brazilian boys, because they'll go, well, he's Brazilian, he's worth 10 million pound. So, but because I was coming from Australia, my value wasn't there, and so that they were sort of negotiating that and the best way to go around it. And they played Arsenal on the weekend, and I went to watch the game, and they got spanked, and Sven-Goran Eriksson got sacked on the Monday morning. I remember sitting in the hotel speaking to my agent, and I was fortunate because Mark Hughes came in, and he said, "Yep, come back in, let's have a look. I've heard about the deal, all this." So I went back in, I trained for 2 days, and I was very fortunate. Very good mate of mine, a coach who had a big influence on my career as well, Ian Crook, was obviously very close with Mark Hughes. So he rang me and he said, "Look, he's keen. He wants to get the deal done." And then again, just a football agent, my agent at the time, blew the deal up. And I remember Ian Crook ringing me, going, "Mate, it's time to get rid of your agent." So this was before Buddy Farah had that English agent at the time, Tom Brooks, and I don't know exactly what had happened, but that deal went south.
How's your football form at the moment?
I'm still sore. I played the other week.
I think was it against the Australian Defence?
Yeah.
Force? I think we got look at that. Textbook.
No, I'm not joking. My brain, you still see things the same way. You still see things happening, and you know what you want to do. It just doesn't work that way.
It's a bit like that, I suppose. Everyone now when they're playing like late in their age, they're sort of going, my brain wants to do that, but my body, my hamstring won't let me. Were you playing right back?
Well, I've got to start at left back at this one. Poor Ruben Zadkovic. I pulled rank on Ruben because he's obviously one of my assistants. And after about 10 minutes, I remember looking across to him and I said, "No, this left back's not for me, Ruben. You get out here, mate."
Well, I'll tell you now, Mark. I have 6 mates that's playing over 35s Friday and Saturday Arvo comps, and they are willing to sign you at the end of this podcast. But just staying on your club career again, you had a very brief stint with Southend United as well. The Shrimpers, home ground, Roots Hall. What a name!
Fantastic.
But you were actually the Socceroos skipper at the time.
Yeah.
Did they realise wow, that's a big signing?
Yeah, well, because I was at Hibs, and the whole reason I went to Hibs as well, it was after, when was that? Would have been after 2018, after the World Cup, Russia. The whole reason I went over was for my coaching career. I had an opportunity to be able to get in because I had enough caps. There was no way they could sort of keep me out. And I wanted to go and meet people. I wanted to sort of extend my network because I knew what I wanted to do after football. Unfortunately, sort of just before the end of the year, Neil Lennon left. We had the Asian Cup that year. So I missed a few games. I remember I had a clause in my contract that if I had 30 starts, it would have just rolled over onto a new deal.
Yep.
And because of the Asian Cup, I missed 4. We had Heckingbottom came in, and I ended up at the end of the year having 29 starts. And I remember Heckingbottom called me into his office, and because he played me every game. And he just said, Millsy, he goes, I'm really sorry. He'd been at Leeds and had a really tough time there. He'd been promised a lot, didn't get it. And he'd sort of been promised a rebuild. And I remember him saying to me, look, you're sort of 34 now, 33, 34. It's like, if I move you on, it gives me the opportunity to sort of bring in maybe 2 younger boys and then start to really build something here. I remember my wife wanted to kill him because she loved Edinburgh. And he ended up lasting 10 games after that. But that was why I ended up down at Southend as well.
Yeah.
The gaffer there, Kev, he was... I'd known him for a long time. He was... I've gone blank. It'll come to me. But I'd known him from when I was younger. He'd been the right-hand man to a few coaches. And when the opportunity... I remember he rang me and he's like, I've been watching you. I know you. I want you to come in and help us. We're trying to build something. And they actually gave me a 2-year playing deal and 2-year coaching. So the only reason that all sort of fell apart after the first year was because of COVID.
Yeah. And I mean, they're in the 3rd tier of English football then. Now I think they're in the 5th or 6th tier.
Yeah, well, once COVID tore them apart, mate.
Yeah, and the good thing about they've actually got their owner is an Australian businessman by the name of Justin Rees, who purchased the club in 2024, and he's got some good things happening at that club. And do you keep an eye on all the clubs that you played for? Do you keep an eye on their results still?
Yeah, you still have a look, especially like Southend. Like I said, it was so disappointing because such a beautiful little club. There's some really good people there. The fans, it was a wonderful little stadium to play at in front of all the fans there, and Hibs as well. Obviously, I've got a soft spot for Hibs. Like I said, I loved my time in Edinburgh, and again, just so passionate. And some of the best games I've been, lucky enough to play in. Obviously, playing against Celtic at their ground, Rangers, and the derby with Hearts, and like I said, to do that late in my career as well was just a fantastic experience because of where I was in terms of my life as well as my career. I was able to take in things that weren't just on a football pitch, and that was special.
Simon Hill, football commentator, which everyone knows, back in England now, but he wants to know what really went down with your proposed move to Crystal Palace when you were at Melbourne Victory. He must know something, because I don't.
All right. Just between me and you, yeah?
Yeah. The cone of silence is going over us.
So Palace came in for me. I don't know. I can't remember the exact numbers. I think it was good money, the first offer. I didn't have any sort of get-out clause with Melbourne Victory or anything like that, and Melbourne Victory just rejected it first off, and then they came back with a bigger offer, and I remember I went in and I said, yeah, mate, like I'd spoken to Palace and everything was done. They just needed Victory to accept it, and I remember they said, yeah, no problem, leave it with us. And then sort of a day went past, 2 days went past, and I remember I went in and said, what's going on? And they're like, nah, not accepting it. And it's a Premier League. I thought they would accept it. And then they got a third offer, which I didn't think was going to come, but Palace came back with a third offer. I remember Ange pulled me into his office, and he basically said, so Ange said, I need you to stay. I'm trying to build something here. It was the start of his second year. We hadn't had a great first year in terms of results and stuff like that. And he said, stay. He goes, at Christmas time, he goes, I'll drive you to the airport, basically. He goes, Christmas, get through to Christmas, help me build this, and then we will, I'll make sure that your move comes. And I liked Ange. I loved Ange for what he'd done for me in my playing career, and I made that decision, and I want to really re-emphasise this. I made that decision to say, yep, okay, I trust you, I'll do that. And then it wasn't, mate, I reckon it was 2 or 3 weeks later, he signed for the national team and left Victory. And I remember I remember
Thanks, mate.
I remember I had a chat to Muskie in the January transfer window, and I told him, oh, Ange had said this, and I remember Muskie looking around. He said, "Do I look like Ange, mate?"
It's a different story now. But do you look back at those moments? It's like that fork in the road. You look back on your career and go, if I'd have just took that, or things change.
Yeah, of course. Like that was that was a 4-year deal in the Premier League that they had offered me. It would have been.
Does it still keep you up at night?
No, again, no, because like I said, at the end of the day, I made the decision. So there was maybe ways around it, but I was contracted to Melbourne Victory. I was their player. As much as I would have loved for it to be a smooth transition and for them just to let me go and not have to worry about any of that stuff, fantastic. But again, like I said, I had a lot of appreciation for what Ange had done for me as a player.
Yeah.
In terms of I felt that I was a very different player when he brought me back to Melbourne Victory to when I left Melbourne Victory, and like I said, that was down to him. So again, like I said, you can look back and you can be sour, you can be angry, and my wife does. She's very cranky about it. Ange and Heckingbottom, they're on her hit list. But like I said, I made that decision, right or wrong. I'll never look back on my career, and that's something I'm proud of. And I'll never say that this happened because of them or because of him.
You think Ange gets a bit of a pain in the side, and he goes, "Oh, that must be Millsy's wife's voodoo."
Yeah, possibly.
just staying with the family. I mean, being a player, it's very much similar to being a coach. It takes you a lot of places. Your wife Ria, 3 kids.
Four girls.
4, sorry,
Yeah.
4. There's 3 of them there.
Yeah.
Is she accepting to moving that lifestyle? I suppose it's a bit of an adventure, isn't it? When the kids are young.
Yeah, when they're young, yes. And through my playing career, they were always with me. But now it's a little bit different, and I guess because my wife's been with me sort of from the beginning as well, she has an understanding that to the outside world it looks like a quite glamorous sort of lifestyle and glamorous game, and it's not. It's definitely not. There's it's very, very hard. Moving countries is difficult. So many times I would leave and she'd be left in a foreign country with 3 kids at the time and have to pack up a house and try and come along as well. And now
it puts strain on a marriage too, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. But like I said, I think it probably makes it a bit easier because she's pretty much been there for the whole journey. So she has a good understanding of what it is. It's not just me being a total arse. It's part of the game as well. Like I said, now's a little bit different though. My eldest, she's in year 11 now. My wife's originally from Adelaide, so she's got support there, which is something we'd never had during our career. It was always just sort of her and the kids, which is very difficult. So we sort of made the decision that when I went to Malaysia, actually, that if I wanted to go down this path, the first couple of years were going to have to be like this. This is how it had to be, and it's sucks, but like I said, I don't know anything else. So if they want to, my daughter likes going out to eat and doing nice things. And
have you ever played a joke on your wife? You come home and say, I just got an offer from a club in Kazakhstan. You interested? Or Iceland?
No, I'm not brave enough, mate.
How are you loving these questions, by the way?
Yeah, top.
Well, you were at a press conference the other day when someone asked you about a pony.
It was Morris. It was one of our owners, because my girls were in the press conference, and I could see him talking to them in the back, so I knew something was coming. They were plotting something.
You get a lot of questions in press conference, but how good is it to get some questions that are just a bit away from the core of it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. It's always nice to talk about a little bit the why as well. And I don't know. I feel like I'm a little bit different to, probably the majority of people in terms of how I want to try to be as honest as possible when it comes to our footballing. And, I think people are starting to understand that now. I think people at the beginning thought that, I was just saying things for the sake of saying things.
Yeah.
But hopefully now that they see the team that these boys have become and the way that they go about things, that they start to understand that if they want to talk about football and ask me, I'm happy to have that discussion.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and this is another thing too for the people at home and also the audience. When I asked Mark to do this, I expected, like what normally happens when you ask a head coach, whether it be rugby league, football, rugby union, you don't usually get their numbers every now and then. Usually you've got to go through the media manager, you've got to go through the club. I fully expected you to go, I'll just speak to the club first. As soon as you hear, I've got to speak to the club first, 9 times out of 10 it's, you went, yeah, no worries, what day? I think that shows a mark of who you are.
Yeah, yes, but also, there's certain people, that football's a small world. You cross paths with certain people, and I know that we have some mutual friends, and like I said, I know that at the end of the day, I was coming to do something that was, going to be good for the game.
Yep. And thank you. Lachlan Rose leaves the club at the end of the season, off to Dundee United. Before we talk about maybe finding a replacement, you played for Hibs in 2018. Is the Scottish Premier League going to suit him down to the ground, do you think? He's going to know he's in a game.
Yeah, he's going to know he's in Scotland too. I don't think he's expecting the weather. I don't think he knows the weather he's about to walk into up north there in Scotland. Look, I think he's had a fantastic couple of years. Not just this year. I played with Lockie when I came back from the UK at MacArthur, and he came from an MPL2 team, so that was his first experience in professional football, and was a little bit of a baptism of fire for him. He walked into a change room with players like myself, Adam Federici, Tommy Orr, some seasoned pros, and we still held on to a little bit of that old school, so he still brings it up every now and then.
Yeah.
But look, like I said, he has a fantastic attitude. He works so hard. I think he's still got so much to learn in the game, and you're going to have to learn on the job when he goes over there. But there's nothing like it, mate. You go over, throw yourself in the fire, and see where you land.
Yeah. I mean, too early, but actually, stick on him. Is he playing this Saturday?
We'll have to wait and see. Actually, he's had a little bit of a calf injury. It wasn't anything serious, but the way that he plays, the high energy, high tempo sort of way that he goes about things. So hopefully tomorrow he's back into full training, and then we'll make that decision.
Too early, but with such a young squad doing well, is keeping them the hardest bit now at the end of this season. But at the same time too, I suppose, like you were talking about your career, you don't want to stunt their career, just like Lachlan.
Absolutely not. And that's why I like when you say, he's keeping them. I don't want to keep them. I want them to have an impact, for themselves, for the club, for the community, and then, allow that path for the next one to come through as well. We have a couple young boys who have been in with us training the last few months now, especially young Callan and Archie, who I saw playing about a month ago in the under-20s. That have come in with us, and there's more there, but we want to start to give these kids that taste of it and that opportunity. So, obviously we don't want a mass exodus.
Well, I was going to say, you could have just done an Ange and said, Lockie, we're building something here.
Maybe that's why I didn't know. Maybe because I've had that experience and because I've lived that I don't ever want to. And I'm sure I can't sit here and promise that nothing like that will ever happen.
Yeah.
But I think because I went through that experience again, all your experiences shape who you are and the way that you go about things. And maybe that's why I feel so passionately about it. When these opportunities come, I'll do whatever I can to help them get there.
Did you find once he leaves, are you actively looking for someone to replace, or do you feel that you can build within?
Look, we'll probably need someone to replace someone like Lockie with a little bit of experience, because, we have young Jake Goodwin coming through. Obviously, Archie's brother, who I think in the last 6 months has come along in leaps and bounds. He's going to need a good pre-season under his belt. Xavier Bertoncello, he's been playing in a wide area at the moment, but I think moving forward, that 9 role could be something that he goes and makes his. We've been sort of planning. We've obviously been fortunate. We've known for quite a while now that Lockie will be leaving. So, look, we're sort of looking and talking, and we'll never close the door on anything.
Do you think that their style of play, which we've spoken about at length already, do you think that'll be good in the Asian Champions League? That style could really...
Our style?
Yeah, could really make a dent.
Yeah, definitely. Look, I played a lot through Asia. I have a good understanding of sort of what's required, and I've played in the Champions League with Asian teams as well. So I sort of know how they go about things. And look, the football that we play as well, it's evolving. As I said, originally it was sort of when I first spoke to the club, it was a 2-year plan that we put in place, and something that we tell the players all the time, that the team that you see play Saturday won't be the team that you see play at home the Saturday after. There will be growth there, and definitely the team that you see these coming weeks won't be the team that comes out of pre-season. So it's not that there's going to be tweaks, there's going to be evolutions to our game, and I think it'll suit Asia.
And it's also, too, it'll be tough to navigate as well because the seasons don't align. And probably another learning curve for you as a coach to manage that.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, this is something that there's no avoiding it. Our pre-seasons are horrendous. You have so long, it's so hard to find games. The Cup helps a little bit now with Asia, but we are very much football-based. And, the messaging last year to the players was, when you come in day one, it'll be football. We'll be playing our football. And I think that's what helped us so early against Adelaide in the Cup. There's no half speed. We're full speed all the time, and we want to, it's part of how we develop the squad as well. We want a squad that's resilient to that, that's able to do that. Fortunately for us this year, I've seen previously players just flat out break down, and it's not nice to see, but it's an indicator that they're probably, it's going to be tough for them in our system moving forward. So we set those standards early doors, and we don't change. So like I said, they come with it and they thrive, or they tend to not want to do it.
I suppose that's where sports science comes into, just knowing when a player's maxed out, how long to, do you give some of them a little bit, I think you might need an extra day off or something like, do you know each player's little...
Yeah, yes and no. I'm very fortunate. I've got a very good S&C in Chris Smith and Justin Doherty, our physio as well. They were two of the first that I really worked hard with to make sure that I got done, because I knew what we were about to present to the players. And I think that's modern football as well. I think you look at the games that are happening now in the Champions League, Bayern Munich and PSG, it's a high energy, high velocity game. It's very, very demanding, and they play about 140 more games than us in the A-League. Right. So if they can do it, and that's where the game's heading, then we play 26 games a year ultimately. We should be full throttle all the time.
You look at Max Burgess, he's 31, was probably ready to start looking for NPL clubs, to be truthful. You sign him and he's been brilliant. Sometimes when someone puts their belief in someone like you did with him, you can really get that little bit more out of them. Do you feel that's what you got with Max? Because he was stuffed around, a little bit before he came to the club, wasn't he?
Yeah, definitely. He'd definitely had a hard 12 months in terms of football and game time and things like that. But look, it's very, very important for me. Max is a fantastic person, first and foremost. And it's probably not so much, through my belief in him and everything like that. Yeah, okay, there's an element to that. But I was honest with him. I was open with him. I told him what I saw. He had offers well above what we were able to offer him. And basically he asked me, well, why should I come? And I was honest with him. I said, Max, because you haven't played for 12 months. I don't think, fantastic getting offers, but you need to get back to enjoying your football. You need to play a brand of football that suits you. And his response to that was what confirmed to me that we have to get this player.
Yeah.
So the fact that he was open, and it was never about the money. It was just purely about he wanted to get back on and show everyone who he was.
And I mean, at 31, he's in career best form. It sort of just shows, again, his physical attributes that can keep him at the top of that game, but also that mental side and that belief.
Yeah, absolutely. He is, he's very strong-minded.
I mean, just on Max, he's got a bit of a cult following at the moment. And that was on one of the Jets supporters groups.
Fantastic.
Can you just imagine him turn up the trainer like that? mate, a little bit of comedy, but actually, just staying on the comedy. Now we're at the old comedy club here on Derby and Hunter. But all the buzz at the moment is at the new comedy club, which is just down the road, 139 Maitland Road, Islington. Big weekend of comedy coming up. Friday is Friday night comedy, of course, at 8 p.m. Saturday, 5:30, we've got Bill Diarcy, followed by on the Saturday night, Saturday night showcase. Sunday, Kyle Legacy at 5 p.m, followed by Sashi Pereira at 6:30. Easy way to find out what's going on is just jump on their website, www.newcastlecomedyclub.com.au, and we thank them for letting us use this little area for this podcast. Sydney FC this weekend, first leg. Is it a case of being a little bit more strategic, or is it just go out there, just do it again?
Yeah, no, it'll be, we'll be on the front foot. We'll be looking to get at them. Like I said, I feel with this group, especially, as much as I tried to avoid it and not acknowledge it. I think the last sort of month of the league, it was tough. It was tough for the players. It was a new experience. I can't deny the fact as well, it was a new experience for me. I had to learn how to manage that situation as well. And once that premiership was sort of sealed, I really felt a sense, not a little bit of a sense of relief that they'd got it done and a real refocusing. Because I know and I see, especially these last sort of 10 days, the hunger in the group now, and I'm not going to try to harness that.
I mean, just having that week off, just a good little rest leading in, or did you want to just to keep the ball rolling?
Yeah, they didn't get a rest, mate. Look, there's pros and cons to everything. Like I said, I think in our league, you play so little games, you never want to have a weekend off. But it did give us a chance to sort of fine-tune a few things and, get some work into some boys that needed it.
I mean, I probably know your answer because of what you've been answering earlier. But again, just hypothetical, you're 1-0 down, 20 minutes to go. What you say, you know what, let's bring it back to Newcastle? Or is it still full steam ahead?
Yeah, mate, that's danger. If I do that,
and I knew you were going to say it.
If I do that, then I'm opening Pandora's box, mate. So I need them to trust that process. All the little things that we do, they're done for a reason. Because if you put the shoe on the other foot, and we need a goal, and we're a defensive team, then I can't flick that switch all of a sudden in them. I need them to be in that frame of mind, and I think you've seen how valuable that is, especially over the last 3 weeks of the season, especially with games like Adelaide, games like Melbourne Victory. That switch to tell them to all of a sudden become an attacking team or to change it.
Yeah,
it can be very detrimental.
So there's no parking the bus, that's for sure. You were pumped by them 4-1 in round 3, but you got 2 wins over them. Sydney FC's defence has been on point since Patrick Casnorbo took over, which was straight after you beat them. That's another challenge too. As another coach, I suppose they've reset too, haven't they?
Yeah, of course. And look, we look at them closely, but we take everything at the moment with a pinch of salt, because there's been some teams over the last month who we look at what they do, we give as much information as we possibly can, and then we turn up to a game and they do something way out of the realm of what they've been doing. And I think that's credit and that's compliment to the players because of the way that they've gone about things. Teams over the last few weeks have been more worried about stopping our boys than actually trying to compete with them.
Yeah.
And it's been another learning experience for them, how to deal with that. So, look, like I said, there's been some small changes with Paddy coming in. Paddy's obviously a very experienced coach, especially in finals. So I think it'll be a fantastic contest.
I was just going to say, how much time do you watch the opposition? How much when you watch tapes and stuff like that?
Me or the team? Me, a lot.
Yeah.
I watch a lot.
I mean, I know you.
But
obviously,
the team, the team. I try to keep it as simple and as effective as possible. Again, like I said, I think there's a lot of differences now from back in the day, and we try to go by sort of a do, show, do.
Yeah.
Which means anything that we're sort of giving to them, whether that be stuff on opposition, they would have done it in some shape or form without really knowing. So even if that's a press, or if that's a way we're going to play out, they would have done aspects of it in a possession drill earlier on in the week, and then we'll show them on the tape, and hopefully when they see it, they sort of match that back to what they've done, and then we'll do our tactical session after that. So we try to keep it as simple as possible, because again, we know, and everyone knows, that ultimately the opposition's doing the same on you. So we can give you all this information, they're taking all this information, then you've got two teams looking at each other not knowing what the hell's going on. So yeah, we try to keep it as simple as possible.
One last question. If you could be transported back into time, when would it be? It could be either football related or non-football related.
Transform.
Your best time.
My best time?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to go back. For me, in terms of football and even family and stuff like that, for me, that sort of 2014, 15, 16 period in my career and in my life was fantastic. There were some downs, and that was sort of that period with a lot of things happening. But that period for me was fantastic, and the main reason for that was, I think, because that's when I really felt that the Australian game domestically was humming.
Mark Milligan, thanks for your time, and thanks for coming on Incredible Lives with Cainey, and thank you to the live audience. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Mark Milligan. And thanks everyone at home for watching. Please like and subscribe to all our podcast platforms, Incredible Lives with Cainey, including YouTube. We'll see you next Monday.